Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another soft spoken Wednesday here in the Mystery Theory. Today, I'm going to share a case that it was a kind of a last minute change of heart. I been reading all about the U of U student Mackenzie Leck, who disappeared last Monday. And it kind of inspired me to share with you another case that happened at the U. For those of you who don't know, the U of U is just the University of Utah. And it's one of those colleges, universities that are sold to the parents as one of the safest places in one of the safest cities. And surrounded by religious people, LDS, Mormons. And sadly, the reality, even though this is not common, things happen. And so I hope that Mackenzie is safe somewhere today. I hope that we can find her soon. I can only imagine what her parents must be going through right now. But today, since we don't know really much about Mackenzie, I decided to share with you another story that comes from the University of Utah. Now, this story is a little bit, how can I call it? Maybe frustrating. Because of the investigation and the fact that Lauren did everything better than expected and got the worst ending for her. So let me explain. Lauren McCluskey was born or lived most of her life in a small town in Washington. This place, it's called Pullman. Her parents were both college professors, and she was described by her parents as a feisty, adventurous, quick learner, competitive, and an athlete since she was a little girl. Now, according to her mom, she started doing track at a very young age because she had that competitive attitude and she was very active. So the mom decided that what better than just sign her up to do some track. And she excelled. By the time she was in high school, she had medals to show off, and she was very good at it. By the time she graduated high school, she had a scholarship waiting at the University of Utah. And as I mentioned before, the university claims to be one of the safest cities, or claims to be in one of the safest cities. And their pitch is that you will be sending your kid to a good place to get a good career and live in a peaceful environment. Now, according to her friends at school, she thrived there. She had the best grades and was a dedicated athlete. And according to her closest friends, she was not into parties. She was not into drinking or even dating. So it was pretty much dedication to her studies and her athlete activities in campus. Now, Lauren made friends from the beginning. She was very friendly and open, sweet. So she made friends with this girl in freshman year. Her name is Alex, and they got along so well that they were roommates or stayed close for the 3 years. They went to church together, they hang out, they studied together. It was just a good, meaningful friendship, and they did things that not most college girls would do, which is having something very quiet. The University of Utah, it's portrayed as one of the safest places, but it's also very well known here in Utah, and us living in the area, that it's a party place. And during the day you can see students riding their bikes. It's a busy area, but if you go at night, it's a party city. So on September of 2018, pretty recently, she started senior year, and Alex and Lauren, both of them, started senior year. So they were excited. This was going to be their last year there, and they decided to go to a bar downtown. Now, you have to understand that Salt Lake City is a safe place, and crime is somewhat it's not something that you would see in a big city like LA or Chicago. I used to work with this doctor that she did her residency in Chicago, and she said, I stayed in the ER and it was like a stabbing every hour, a shotgun, somebody that was involved in some kind of a fight. And now that she worked here, she was like, it's a completely different story. But downtown area, it's kind of where the younger people meet, where they go, where they like to walk around. Most of Salt Lake City, you'd have to drive around. In downtown, everything is closed, so a lot of people that live in the area walk. And it's really a completely different vibe if you compare it to the suburbs, okay? Completely different. There's a lot more bars, there's a lot more drinking, there's a lot more clubs, there's a lot more drunk people overall everywhere. And there's also a lot of gay bars and stuff that in the rest or in the suburbs people don't really want to talk about, and some people don't even know they exist until something happens. They go to a wedding in downtown and then they realize, hey, this is completely different from where I live 20 minutes away. I'm not saying it's wrong or it's right. I'm just telling you that it's different from the rest, and it's easier for somebody to hide in that downtown area pretending to be somebody else, or somebody who can't drive because they have a revoked driver's license. It wouldn't be weird for you to meet somebody who's walking to work if they live in downtown, or walking to school. But if you lived in the suburbs and you would walk into work, it would look a little bit weird, and people would start asking questions about it. Just so you know. Now, they went to this bar and she met this guy by the name of Sean Fields. And he actually worked at the bar. And when Lauren was leaving, he was security. They talked a little bit and she gave him her phone number. The next morning, Lauren was excited when he called, and they were going to meet that afternoon for kind of a unofficial date. Now, she quickly learned that he was 28 years old, that he told her that he was a part-time computer science student at the community college. And they started dating pretty much immediately. I mean, they liked each other. They started to go out for dates, dinners. But I think it only took them a week when they were exclusive. And Lauren called her parents and said, "Hey, I met this guy. I feel special. I feel like I'm wanted. Like, I want a relationship. I think this is going to work. I think this is the guy." And her parents, she seemed in love and happy because that's what she told them. But to her friends, soon enough, they realized that it was a different story. Now, Lauren, over this period of time, which is pretty short, I mean, it only took her about a week after they started dating exclusively, that she started to change. And her friends realized that Sean was controlling her, that she couldn't miss a call, that she was always on her toes around him, afraid of missing a text or a call. And according to her friend Alex, the one that she visited the bar with that a night when she met him, they went back to the bar, and it almost felt like he was pressuring her to stay up until 2 a.m. to go pick him up. Again, kind of jokingly, according to the friend, but at the same time, it was pushy. It was like, "Remember, you have to come. Remember, you have to come." And almost like, "What were you doing, dude, a week ago when you didn't have a girlfriend who picked you up?" Another thing that her friend mentioned that it was kind of a red flag was that every time that they were going out, he'd be texting Lauren, "Where are you? Who are you with? Send me a picture of who are you with." Alex told Lauren, "This is weird. You shouldn't be dating this guy. He is insecure and he's borderline abusive." But Lauren told Alex, "I think he just doesn't trust me yet. But as soon as he does and he realizes that I'm not doing anything wrong, he'll start to trust me." However, other friends were noticing the abusive patterns that her partner had with Lauren. This was not what, quote unquote, normal dating would be. But Lauren didn't know better because she didn't have boyfriends before. So to Lauren, this was a normal relationship. Now, her friends did take the time to tell her that that was not okay and this was not normal. In one of the things that the friends were starting to get worried about Lauren is because in one occasion she told a friend that she had a fight with Sean and that he really was so angry that she realized that it was her fault and that she didn't want to see him that way again. She basically said, "I don't want to upset him that way ever again. I need to change." Now, 2 weeks into their relationship, Sean was almost moved in to Lauren's dorm room. He made friends with people in the building and they would let him get in. And he just didn't need one of those cards, those key cards that you would get when you're paying your rent in a dorm room. At this time, Lauren looked like she was not sleeping well, according to her friends, and she seemed extremely sad. This was 2 weeks into their relationship. I mean, if you're with a guy and 2 weeks later you realize you're miserable, it's kind of a red flag, I should say. But apparently she missed it. Sean told Lauren that he would give her a gun at this point, 2 weeks later into their relationship, for protection. I mean, Lauren told her friends about it, and she said, "Well, he's going to give me this gun because I need protection." Now, and we have to go to the legalities of having a gun at the U, and it's not illegal. Here in Utah, as long as you have a permit, concealed kind of thing, really don't know how much you have to go through to get one of those permits, but there is a process, and you can own a gun and go to the University of Utah. It's legal here in Utah. And what is not legal is for somebody to give you a gun for protection and you not have the permit to carry it. So, Diamond, which is another friend of Lauren's, she was part of something about security in campus. I can't remember what she was part of, but she decided to contact the officials at the school, and she didn't get any positive response. They were not worried, and this was by the end of September 2018. Diamond was really worried and trying to make people understand that, you know, this is one of those things that she was going to get this gun and she didn't have a permit for it. According to Diamond, they kind of diminished the worry that she had and said that they were going to talk about it on a meeting, on a school meeting. Now, if you're wondering why she needed a gun, she didn't have any problems at the school. She didn't have anybody harassing her, following her. It was the same thing. I mean, she was going through the same places and going to the same classes that she was at the beginning of her senior year, and nothing happened. So the friends were worried about Lauren, and honestly, they were scared of him. Now, remember, this started in September, but in October, in the beginning of October, Lauren finds an ID with a different name on it. Her boyfriend name was not what she thought it was, and she told her friends about it and immediately started to do a search. She found out his name was Melvin Rowland. He was not 28, but 37 years old. And he was a registered sex offender. She immediately freaked out. She was starting to see the signs. She thought that it was just a kind of messed up kind of guy, and now all of a sudden, this guy is registered. She told her friends and family that she found out this information and said that she was ready to break up with him. She even asked her mom, "How am I going to do this?" The mom said, "Just stay away from him." Now, that same night, this guy, Sean, that now I'm going to call Rowland, he went to her room and peeked through her window, scared the crap out of her, and then got inside the room where Lauren told him, "You know, I found out this information. I know that you're registered and blah, blah, blah." He said, "Well, I was framed. I didn't do anything." But Lauren was very straight to the point. "We need to break up and you need to leave right now." He kept forcing himself to her, and he actually spent the night there. But in the morning, he was spotted leaving the dorm in Lauren's car. And apparently that was the price for him to leave, because he said that he needed a car to leave. He also said to avoid confrontation that he would drop it off at this distant parking lot and that she could go later on and pick it up. Now, Lauren's mom was aware of this because Lauren kept calling her and telling her all the updates and everything that was going on. And she didn't like it, so she called to report it to the authorities at the U. When she called there, she explained what happened and that her daughter was lied about who her boyfriend was, and that he was a registered offender, and that he lied about his age. And now she was worried that by the time that Lauren went to pick up the car, that he was going to be there waiting for her and harm her. So they sent somebody with Lauren to pick up the car, and they pick it up with no other problems. The police called back Jill, campus police called back Jill, and let her know that everything was fine and Lauren had her car back. Now, at this time, Lauren started receiving text messages from somebody that claimed to be this guy's, Rowland's, friends. And this friends of the guy and her ex-boyfriend would say something like, he's upset, why did you break up with him, he really loves you, you guys are different, but they're definitely meant for each other. But Lauren and her friends thought that since he did have knowledge on computers and he was really good with computers, they thought that maybe he was using an app to use different phone numbers and text things. But in the end, it was actually, or they suspected that it was actually Rowland doing all that. At one point, it was almost like he was desperate, and this supposedly friends texted Lauren and told her that he was in an accident, and they sent another text saying that he was in the hospital, and finally they sent another text saying that he died. Lauren was very suspicious, and she knew that something was up, so she started to block all the numbers one by one. And she would call her mom every time that she got one of these texts, and they both agreed that that was a lie. That if somebody died in a car accident, it would have been reported as a fatality in the area, and it was not. Then she received another text message wondering if she was going to the funeral. And Lauren said no, that she knew that he was alive, and to please leave her alone and not call her back. So I feel like that was her last, attempt to deal with this by herself. So then she got worried and called police campus, reported this, and said that he was trying to lure her somewhere, and that she was afraid that he was trying to hurt her. They told her there was not much they could do because, according to what she said, he was not threatening with violence. And if it got worse, to call back. That was their answer. Now, the next day, she receives an email threatening her to reveal explicit pictures of Lauren and this guy, Rowland, and that she needed to pay $1,000 if she didn't want those pictures to get out. She explained everything to the police as soon as she, got this email, and she even told them the amount that this person wanted, which she thought it was Rowland. The police didn't do anything. She actually paid the $1,000 and went straight to campus police again with her friend. The police said, this is, a scam, and you fell for it. And to be honest, from the beginning, this looked more like extortion, maybe even cyber extortion because of those pictures. The police, on the other hand, they thought that both of them were being victimized, that maybe somebody got a hold of his phone, took the pictures, and that he, that person was probably it's just not scamming them. It doesn't make sense in my head, so it's kind of hard for me to explain this. Lauren knew it was him. I mean, but the police were not worried. They told her, well, we're going to check his record and we're going to get back to you in about 2 days. So Lauren was like, I'm not having this. This is far more dangerous than they're making it out to be. So she decided to call the Salt Lake City Public Safety Department, where she told them that she was scared for her life and that she wanted them to arrest this guy with a record that basically was blackmailing her, and it was scaring her, almost stalking her. But the Salt Lake City Public Safety Department said, that is not our jurisdiction. You have to talk to campus police. So they even transfer her to campus police. I mean, at this point, she was still being harassed, but no police action. And she was exhausted. She was sleeping with one eye open. She never knew when he was going to come after her. And 10 days after the breakup, she finally got a text that seemed that was coming from Rowland that said, what did you tell the cops? We know everything. Now she gets scared and immediately called 911, which, by the way, they sent her back to police campus. There was different texts. That one of them, he was impersonating a police officer. She even went with this information to campus police, and the police told her, hey, don't text him back. But they didn't do anything. That night, in October, Rowland got in campus and went straight to her room. Lauren was in class at the time, but when class was over, she called her mom to tell her about her plans for the rest of the evening. She had to work on a project, and they were having a kind of catching up conversation over the phone. All of a sudden, her mom heard Lauren say, no, no, no. And then she hears a noise, like a thud. And then the phone fell to the ground. The mom immediately thought that she was being attacked, maybe even tackled. But just put yourself in her shoes for a minute, and being hundreds of miles away, worrying about, your daughter who had a relationship with this guy who ended up being registered. She called 911 immediately, and she didn't. It was her husband that actually called 911. By the time that they were done, the school was in lockdown. They said that there was an active shooter and that somebody on campus was dead. When they released the picture of the shooter, it was Rowland, and her friends knew. They knew that the deceased person must have been Lauren. She was murdered by Rowland. She was shot multiple times, and her body was in the backseat of a car in a parking lot. It didn't seem real. Her friends blamed themselves for not doing more. At the same time, Rowland was running around, and the police were looking for him. They found him in a church nearby, where he took his own life. Now, at that moment was when the police found out that he was out on parole. A little bit too late, actually, because now Lauren was dead. I heard about I was listening to this interview where somebody was saying that, parole is an extension of prison. So if you don't really play by the rules, you go back. So if campus police would actually have checked, they would have known that he was breaking the rules. He had a gun. He had a social media presence. They could have arrested the guy. And only after the first report. But they never checked. And this could have been prevented. Now you have to think about this. Diamond, Lauren's friend, called and reported this guy giving her friend a gun. Again, if they would have talked to Lauren at the time, if they would have done something, they would have realized that, hey, this guy has a gun. He's not supposed to. Now this guy, Rowland, he spent 10 years in prison overall, and he paroled 3 different times. And he returned after every single parole thing because of violations. Now, according to the campus police, they didn't check. They had no detectives, and checking parole thing was not part of the protocol. They were not set up for this kind of quote-unquote common crime in colleges around the country. When the police did some kind of a press release, they said that this guy was a threat financially and morally, but he was not really something that they considered that was going to be violent. Now at this point, the University of Utah is in big trouble, so how can you say that you are one of the safest schools, one of the safest cities, and living in a Mormon state, and all of a sudden this is going on there, and people and police is not ready for dealing with what's going on? And something as simple as checking the parole status of somebody that you know is registered. So I mean, it's a no-brainer, and you don't have to be a detective to kind of put 2 and 2 together and kind of think. Just saying. She, Lauren ended up paying the price for the university not being ready for this kind of thing. And she paid the highest price, which was with her life. The university launched this huge investigation that actually took 2 months to review. And basically they came back saying that there were shortcomings on the people side and also the system side of things. And they proposed 30 different changes that they needed to make the university a safer place. And then there was this other press release where this person high in the university just said that this couldn't have been prevented. This was something that no matter what they did, they thought it was going to happen anyways. So how come some, like in the investigation, accepted responsibility? I mean, if you really think about it, they knew about it and didn't do anything. Another thing that a lot of people were frustrating, or was frustrating to a lot of people who were frustrated about, is the fact that everyone kept their jobs. Nobody was fired. They actually even honored the dispatcher for helping Lauren get her car back. I'm like, really? Are we doing that right now? Is this positive reinforcement? They also said that more changes were coming. And something that really stuck out was the gun report that was ignored. And people reporting what was going on and not being taken seriously. the window peeking by a sex offender. I'm sorry, but that's kind of a big deal in my head. So a girl in your campus is telling you, hey, this guy is peeking through my window and he's registered, and you don't think about, let's check if this guy is in parole. Was on parole. I don't know. I guess that in the end, and I'm going to give you a little bit of something about the Salt Lake City police here in the end, but in this case, in the end, the problem was that nobody was there to see the bigger picture. A lot of different people were taking a lot of different reports, but there was nobody on the case that would put all those pieces together and say, hey, what do we have to do to kind of get this guy on something? I mean, he is stalking this girl who's an athlete, who's a good student, who is here from another state, and we must do something about it. Yet they had nobody to do that. Now, there is something that is frustrating in all that, and I feel like one of the documentaries that I watched, it kind of revolved around the idea of the incompetence of the police in dealing with this kind of thing. But if you are a local, or if you live in the area, you know that crime here happens, but it's not usual. It's not, as I mentioned in the beginning, a standard city, crime rate kind of thing, even though it's been growing recently because of a lot of increase in population in recent years. And but I have to say that police officers here in the state of Utah, in my experience, are really nice people, and they're family-oriented people. Most of them, they're religious. Most of them do really care about you, and they're doing their job. Sometimes it's easier to believe that it's not a big deal because this doesn't happen very often. And for a smaller police department that I think at the time had only 30 people working in the entire police campus for thousands and thousands of students. Maybe if it was in the jurisdiction of the Salt Lake City Police Department, which is huge, maybe it would have been different. But trusting this to only 30 people that are working overtime for every single student that is there, it was a lot for them to do it. And I'm not excusing them. I'm saying that changes must be done. Going back to the police, it's hard to understand this case. I mean, after knowing that this guy had parole, like he was out on parole, you knew, and you know that he could have been back in jail in no time for just the slightest thing, which is having a social media account. But what happened when people are not ready to deal with it? And again, I think that the police, they just were not trained enough to deal with this kind of thing that doesn't happen often. Last summer, I remember I blew a tire on the freeway, and I had 3 different highway patrol officers stopping at different times. The first one gonna put his light on and talk to me through his window, and he said, do you need help? Can I help you? Can I do something? And I was like, I'll blow a tire. And it was a bad situation overall. The truck that I was driving, it was about to be retired, and my registration was due for about 2 days because really I wasn't going to renew it. And I broke a light, and there were silly things, and they could have been a lot worse. But I had 3 different highway patrol officers even offering to change the tire for me while I was waiting for my husband to come and help me change the tire. One stopped, and then he was like, well, I'm gonna do something, but I'll be back. If you're still here, I'll help you. Okay. Then the second one was like, okay, we're going somewhere, but are you okay? Do you need help? And all of a sudden, a third officer came by, and he stayed behind me, and he was like, I'll put my lights on so we're safe, and people kind of move away from the edge. All that I'm saying is that even though Salt Lake City is a city, it's a big city, and it has a lot of people, and especially right now, I think we haven't shaken off the feeling that we're still a small town and people care about people, and most people have good intentions, and officers are used to dealing with minor things. I remember one time I ran out of gas and I forgot my purse at home, and there was this officer who gave me a ride back home so I could get my purse, go back, and put some gas. This was about 10 years ago, but that's the kind of thing that they're used to dealing with. Somebody stranded on the side of the road. We just, they're not that busy like you see in bigger cities. You go to Los Angeles and you don't see a highway patrol officer for miles and miles and miles and miles, because they're always busy. They're always doing something very important, and they don't have the time to deal with the small things. And here in Utah, or at least here around the area where I live, 3 highway patrols were kind enough to stop and say, hey, can I help you? Can I do something for you? I'll stay behind so you're safe. Which is not an excuse for not being prepared for the worst. I think it kind of hurt a little to know that they were not ready to deal with something like this. But I've met more than enough officers to know that I don't know if most of them get into that into that job thinking that they're going to have to deal with something this bad. Not here. So I hope that this life that took for them to realize that this is real almost makes me feel like, Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore. Yes, we're still in Salt Lake City, but change have changed over the last 15 to 18 years, and a lot more things are being seen here that were not common. So we have to adapt, and we have to train, and we have to do whatever we have to do to make things better, because it's not acceptable for somebody to lose their lives. When something as simple as somebody checking for a parole status on somebody could have prevented this tragedy. I just wanted to end with that and kind of give you a different perspective on what the Salt Lake City Police Department is. And I live in a small town, and we have our police department close by, and every time I worry about something, they're right here. If I see something that is out of the ordinary, I call them, and they know me, and they want to keep us safe. So it's not that they were not doing their job, it's just that they were not ready for what the job was going to be. And I am 100% sure that because of what happened to Lauren, things changed and things had to change, because I don't think anybody, especially law enforcement, want to have another death that people blame it on them for not doing their job. And not because of pride, but because most police officers have a good heart, and because most of them care. I can't say everyone because that would be generalizing too much, but most of them are kind people, loving people, even religious people, that it's not only their job as a police officer, but their duty as a human being for what their beliefs are, to do what's right and to help people and to keep them safe. I can't even imagine what her parents must feel like right now, to know that she did everything right. She reported time after time what was wrong, and that this still happened. Now there is a foundation that her parents are working on right now, which is about student safety and what parents need to know. You know, there's a stalking thing that I think it's some kind of a course or something that college students can take. There's financial support for those programs, and also for track. So, yeah, I mean, it was too big of a price to pay with her life to make a change, and to know that she was a genuine, smart, funny, responsible athlete, and that she was taken from this world by a guy who should not be out, should have been in jail. It kind of opens our eyes to see that bad things happen even when you do all the things right, even when you report things, even when things can still go wrong. So now I'm hoping that Mackenzie is the new girl that disappeared from the University of Utah. And she didn't disappear from the U, she was a student at the U. But I'm hoping for a happy ending for her. Because of Lauren, it kind of made me think about Lauren's case when Mackenzie disappeared. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with campus police or anything. Again, she disappeared after taking a lift from the airport, so it's nothing to do with that. But I'm sure that a lot of people at the University of Utah are kind of remembering Lauren at this time and having a little bit of a sad time, kids worrying about their safety and all those things that shouldn't happen, especially not in any university. You should be worrying about kids being kids and irresponsible and having parties and drinking and maybe having too many girlfriends or boyfriends. That should be your concern, not their safety. So yes, this was a bad investigation, and it led to something horrible. But I'm sure there's more than one officer who still can't shake this off. You would still look at her picture and maybe cry a little bit. I don't know how I would have reacted to this tragedy if I was one of those that was like, we'll call you back. I just can't even imagine making a mistake that led to somebody losing their lives. You know, it's just one of those things that you're like, it was, I don't know how, but I'm hoping that everyone at this point healed a little bit, and maybe this is just a reminder. And I can report back on Mackenzie and say that she's safe and that she's okay, and that her disappearance was almost to stir up a little bit this feeling of sadness that we were all left with when Lauren died. Thank you so much for being here today, guys. I appreciate you coming back for this Soft Spoken Wednesdays. I'll be back on Friday with a new true crime story.